Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, April 20th. LA Galaxy getting ready to take on Austin FC coming up on Saturday. We're going to get you ready for that game, but Greg Vanney did a whole bunch of talking today at training, so we're going to get you through all that. Injuries, transfers, the freak accident that happened to one of the LA Galaxy players. Don't worry, he's fine. I don't know if I should have couched that way or not, but he's fine, so we don't have to worry about that, but it's still an interesting little story. We're going to talk about that, of course. The first win for the LA Galaxy actually already happened. We're going to talk to you about that a little bit, too. So a whole bunch of little things to sort of cover as we get you ready for Austin, and to help us do all that, we're glad to have him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
It's going all right. Safety first. We got an OSHA inspector coming later. Yeah. It's been 0 days since the last Galaxy accident, so we'll try to steer clear of that. Yeah. Good times. Yeah. What else can go wrong?
To quote Greg Vanney, a fountain of blood, which is that's a nice way of saying.
But
it.
he's fine.
But he's fine.
Just a flesh wound.
He's fine. Yeah. He's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll tell you who that is coming up here in just a little bit. Hammer, you got to witness El Tráfico from afar. How was it viewed from the great state of Texas there?
Well, I got to watch it live. There was no birthday parties. I didn't have other commitments, so that's the beauty of it.
No birthday parties with little kids wearing FC Dallas jerseys mocking you.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't have anything else going on, but with the exception of Houston away, it was kind of the same old story. They played well. They dominate possession. They make some mistakes, and they walk away with nothing to show for it. I think that's kind of been the story of the LA Galaxy this season. Take away the fact that it's a rivalry game, and I don't think you could be too upset with how the Galaxy played. I mean, we've had, how many times have we had that recap, this season? Oh, they didn't get the win, or they didn't, they only got 1 point out of it, but the Galaxy have to be, happy with the way they played. I think the fact that it was a rivalry, and it was the, LAFC's first time winning at Dignity Health Sports Park, that adds, salt to the wound. And then with the whole supporters group situations and all the drama kind of surrounding everything going into it, it makes it a sad situation just because no one likes to lose to their rivals, and especially in the state that the club's in right now. But when you look at the play on the field, I thought the Galaxy played their, maybe 60 minutes of their best 60 minutes of the season. I don't know if you parse out those mistakes individually, or towards the end it got a little bit sloppy. Their sharpness wasn't there. They weren't connecting on those passes. But I liked what I saw from the Galaxy. I saw a hungry Galaxy. This was exactly the response you wanted after the disaster that they had in Houston, where it just looked like they had no fight. They didn't show up. They showed up for this game. They played hard. They played like they wanted to win, like it meant something to them. And it's just those silly mistakes ended up costing them. Brugman with the bad bounce is very similar to what happened with Chicharito in Houston, just giving up the ball in a poor spot. Edwards, the throw in to Sega Koulibaly. Sega got blasted, and rightfully so, because he hadn't seen any minutes, and he looked lost. He looked out of place, but that was due to injury. But I was making the joke that play with Edwards, I literally spent the day before yelling at my son's team, because I'm helping coach. I'm like, guys, throw the ball, when you're on that side of field, don't throw it in front of your goal because the other team's going to get it. This is something like I'm telling 8-year-olds, don't throw it towards your own goal. When you're the goalie, when you do the goal kick, don't kick it in front of the goal. And that's exactly what Edwards did. Just a youth soccer mistake, which is super frustrating to concede the penalty. And then, of course, the set piece with the corner. So stop me if you heard this before. The Galaxy struggled on set pieces this season. So, and it's not like they were making those mistakes constantly, but it was enough to it impacted the outcome of the game. I was happy with how they played, but there were still enough mistakes to make this a super frustrating loss.
Greg Vanney literally said today, he said, we always seem to get up for this game, right? Talking about LAFC. And he goes, maybe we should probably just have everybody else play in the same jerseys, like in LAFC jerseys every game. And maybe we would get the performance.
That might do the trick. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was sort of saying, and we'll talk a little bit more about what he said, but he's sort of saying it's kind of like, these are all like, cup final games for us here in the next couple of weeks. He goes, because we have to do something to get back into this. And he goes, and it's almost like we have to learn, and maybe I'll put words in his mouth a little bit here. I was trying to read between the lines of what he was saying, but it's almost like they have to learn what the intensity to win is, right? Like what you have to put in, game out, in order to win in Major League Soccer. And Vanney's pointed that out a couple times. Just in terms of margins, right? Margins and percentages are the difference there. I mean, look at the mistakes that the Galaxy made. LAFC capitalized on every single one of them, right? And it wasn't even like, it's like, okay, and that's maybe that's even overstating it. They didn't actually. The Galaxy played excellent transition defense for the most part in that entire game, and that's where LAFC really looks to get out and take advantage of people's in the transitions. And the Galaxy's transition defense was, I think, perfect because they really didn't. The only one you could sort of say that they got away with was the first goal, but even that, the transition was over by the time that ball gets deflected out to Carlos Vela and Vela. So it wasn't on the transition part. That was more unlucky probably than anything. Delgado has to track back there and he has to stick his foot in, and if it bounces anywhere else, it's not straight to Carlos Vela and he doesn't score there. So
yeah, that's the one player you didn't want to have it. But looking at the stats, kind of mirroring what you said, this is like a bizarro El Tráfico, and this has happened in the past also, but for the majority of these games, it's LAFC holding possession and then the Galaxy on the counterattack and kind of making things happen. Here was the opposite. The Galaxy with 65% possession, but LAFC did have more chances more shots. So their transitions were working. It just they could have probably punished us a little bit more than they didn't.
Right.
So you got to give credit to the Galaxy defense in some regard, mistakes aside. Jalen Neal, someone who, to me, he was one of the most impressive players in the game, just with his calmness. I made the joke that if my house was on fire, I could trust him to go in, walk in calmly, walk out. Nothing phases him. Just no big deal. Just going to go in there and out of it. So I was impressed with how he played, but it's kind of against how many El Tráficos have gone previously, where the Galaxy are able to go in there and steal the points. Here, basically, LAFC made us pay for our mistakes. Yeah. And that's it. That's the difference. That's all there is to it.
We'll see. Lots of interesting little takeaways. Aude getting his first minutes in there. Caligari again looking very. I mean, for the most part, Caligari he had Buanga on his side, and there was Buanga didn't have any game in there. Palacios, I think, was also the other guy in the center, and he didn't have a good. Carlos Vela got. You can say the guy didn't. Somebody criticized me because they're like, you can't just say that Carlos Vela had a good game. I'm sorry. I didn't think he had a good game. I thought he had the one goal that he scored.
Nice goal.
He scored a nice goal, but he was wide open. The ball bounced to him. Unlucky. Even Carlos Vela was like, I kind of got lucky there. And I was like, okay, yeah, I agree. And then they're like, well, he also got an assist. And it's like, yeah, from a corner. I mean, that's cool. That's great. Hey, good job. The whole deal. And then they're like, oh, and he scored 2 goals too. It's like, yeah, but one of them was a penalty kick. He didn't draw that, right? Yeah. Like, it's like all this other stuff. It's like, it's there. I'm like, I'm just, in terms of what Carlos Vela could have done to the LA Galaxy, in terms of what Buanga could have done to the LA Galaxy, in terms of what LAFC could have done to the LA Galaxy. I mean, listen, podcasters, pundits, national TV people all the way across were worried that the LA Galaxy were going to be embarrassed in that game. Yeah. And if anything, it was the opposite. It's sort of more opposite than that. The Galaxy put a very good showing in there. But at the end of the day, there's this many wins. For all those listening on the podcast, I made a zero. There was this many wins for the LA Galaxy. Well, almost. The LA Galaxy actually did get a win this week, Eric. That's where Tyler Boyd won Goal of the week. You're like, wait a minute. Yeah. You think LA Galaxy too, which they also won as well. Yes, they did. But Tyler Boyd won Goal of the Week in Major League Soccer for an El Tráfico goal that, by the way, was measured at 36.1 yards away from goal. That is
from downtown.
That is the second longest goal since Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Isn't that fun, right?
That's interesting. El Tráfico lore. The interesting thing about this goal, it was an absolute golazo, a banger, the secret word of the day for those of you keeping track. But it's as well as it was hit and the distance that it was hit from, for when the goalie gets a finger on it, it doesn't feel, you don't get as much satisfaction. So it's one of those things. It was a great goal, great shot. The audacity to kind of take it from there.
Right.
But for some reason, whenever the goalkeeper touches it, it just doesn't feel as satisfying. But that also gives a credit with how well it was hit and how well it was struck. So kudos to Tyler Boyd for finally getting on the line. We're racking up our goal scorers. I think we have 5 different goal scorers.
Right.
And he was our second proper attacker to score. You have Joveljic to score, and then Boyd is on the wing as our attacker. Everyone else has either been defenders, and then Delgado, I wouldn't consider him an attacker.
But,
so, kudos to get our attackers on the board.
The best goals the LA Galaxy, I think, have scored this year happened in this game. One, Tyler Boyd is the best goal the Galaxy have sort of scored in any sort of flashy way, because most of them have been like deflections or like they pick it up at the edge. And even Delgado's goal is really well worked on all sort of ways. The Galaxy had good passing through that. Joveljic out wide, Chicharito to that front post, maybe even gets a little flick on it that makes it go back to Delgado, and Delgado taps it in. It's like that's how they should be. That's how you should be able to finish them at the end when you do all the things right you're supposed to do.
Yeah, if Chicharito would have gotten on the end of that proper and got a clean look on it, like it would have been a beautiful build-up and a beautiful goal. So it's kind of interesting the way that works out. Chicharito also had a couple good chances. He, like you said in the post game conference, he kind of mentioned he hit it where he wanted it to, but I thought that for sure was going to be a goal. So the other thing, and I was kind of having this conversation after the game, that if you're a Mexican national team fan watching that game, how frustrating it must be. That the one thing the Mexican national team is missing is a goal scorer. And you have Chicharito, who all he does is create havoc and create space and get the Galaxy scoring goal. And all Vela does is you just need the ball to fall to the right spot, and he'll put it pinpoint accuracy. Imagine if those two guys got a call up to the World Cup or were in the national team fold. It's like I'd be pulling my hair out if I were a Mexican national team fan.
I would like to point out, and this is a Twitter screenshot from my Twitter, I did not vote for Tyler Boyd to win goal of the week because I thought Aspria's goal was much better. The bike, the full volley bike inside the thing. Listen.
Bicycle stuff to beat. Yeah.
I am not one of these people who ever thinks that goal of the week is anything but a popularity contest. I understand why people would vote for Tyler Boyd. I understand sort of the lore of El Tráfico and everything else, but give me a bike inside the box, full volley coming in, and a goal on that one probably almost any time. I think probably some people got pretty screwed over, though, whenever they put Carlos Vela's goal on this, which is just, it's nicely taken, but it's just nothing special. There's probably other better goals that
for
were
goal
around.
of the week, yeah.
They were worried.
It was well hit. We're not going to keep talking about that. It was well hit, but yeah, goal of the week, I don't know that it takes that mantle.
Right. Roger gives us a $2 super chat. Thank you very much, Roger. We appreciate that. As we go through this, if you are interested in adding or asking a question, changing a topic, doing any of those fun things, feel free to reach out and send us a super chat, and we'll be happy to answer the questions. One of the things that sort of came out, and you were sort of talking about it, was the Mexican national team. There's a guy. I'm pretty sure.
I was trying to make the segue there. I kind of knew where we were going.
I know. I wanted to draw it out just a little bit. But Julian Araujo, Efrain Alvarez, both on the bus, headed to go play the U.S. men's national team. That game ended in a 1-1 draw. If you watched it, congratulations. You also fell complete victim to the cash grab that is some. Yeah. And everything they were trying to do there, because I don't know if you can possibly cheapen the USA-Mexico rivalry any more than what happened last night. That's fine. I don't really care. And like you said, I said I was going to watch. I don't really care. And then I heard Araujo was starting, and I'm like, I want to watch, see how Julian's doing, see if he's out there. And then I was like, will Efrain Alvarez even play? The answer is no. No, he will not. But it was still sort of one of those things to sort of look at. Julian Araujo actually started in the starting 11 for Mexico. Played, I thought, was a very good game, and it was a former LA Galaxy player, Oriol Antuna, who scored the only goal for Mexico. So
it's big tuna time. Antu Nation, stand up.
He just keeps kind of progressing for me, and it's like people are like, man, we should have kept him. I'm like, you didn't have the money to keep him.
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't have kept him.
Yeah.
You remember he was a Man City product at the time. When he was on loan, and he has turned into a nice little player. I don't think he's turned into like the world beater, going to Europe type of player that maybe, was the expectation at him in his youth. But I think he's a solid, journeyman in Liga MX, and obviously the Galaxy would have loved to have kept him, especially when you talk about winger depth and where we need help. I'd love to have Antuna on this team right now. So there's a soft spot of me, even though it's being an American USA soccer supporter, there's always a soft spot for your Julian Araujo's and your Uriel Antunas. I always like to watch him succeed, so I was happy to see him get the goal and kind of get things going. But like you said, we're joking around, just the cash grab of it. That's how great, if you want to speak, how great the rivalry is. We knew it was a cash grab. It was, I think it was even sponsored, the Continental Classico. And we're like, we know exactly what this is. Stadium was full. We watched it on TV. Everyone was watching. Everyone was talking about it. So they can do whatever they want. If you have USA versus Mexico, it's going to get eyeballs. People are going to talk about it, no matter how poor the product is on the field. It wasn't exactly the most well-played game, but we were all watching, and it gave us, some talking points, something to talk about.
Yeah, it was. It wasted some time. Let's put it that way. That was one of those things. And by the way, probably fitting that it ended in a draw, because
that was the result we deserved.
Yeah, that was the result everybody deserved, right? There was no bangers, because neither of those goals were great. I didn't think. Antuna carried the ball for intercepted the half, and then was able to dribble forward. I'm sure the LA Galaxy would love to have his speed right now, though. Like, if you could put him on the wing right now, he would absolutely fit into this Galaxy side in terms of going over on the Douglas Costa side, doing all that stuff. And so yes, it is what it is.
And I see that in the chat. Well, when he was here, he missed a bunch of chances, and I agree with that. He was, very similar to, Anima Boateng, where it was all speed and the finish wasn't there.
Or Kevin
Cabral.
Finishing
has improved since his time
right
here, and also at the, we've seen it with Chicharito. You don't even necessarily need the finishing. You need the speed. You need someone to create the havoc. And so, I would take him in a heartbeat if he was available, for the Galaxy to sign a player or a player like him.
Right. Again, Efrain Alvarez didn't get off the bench in that one, so he returned. LA Galaxy head coach Greg Vanney confirmed he is back training with the team, so he's fully available for this weekend whenever they play Austin. So that's coming up. One of the other things that was interesting, and I saw this chart come out. This is from Aldo, I think Comey on Twitter. It's ALDOCOMI, and it was sort of the luck versus bad luck. Now we can sort of track these things, right? And I remember there was an EPL season where they were showing, I think it was one of the ones where Liverpool won the EPL side of things, and they were showing how lucky they were. Like, there was a luck versus good type thing, and they got lucky, and they were lucky to the tune of like +8 or +9, points, or like the whole deal. They can sort of do that. So there is a chart out there that can sort of say, hey, how are the LA Galaxy doing? And it's sort of their actual points per game versus the expected points per game, right? And so as you slide right along your x-axis, that is your expected points per game. And then as you go up on your y-axis on the left, you can sort of see that is your actual points per game. So looking at the LA Galaxy, looking at their stats and everything they're currently showing the LA Galaxy is an extreme outlier in this. They say that really they should be at 1.2 points per game. Yeah. And they're currently at 0.4 something points per game. Hold on, I actually have it.
0.43.
0.43 points per game. So this chart right here is sort of telling you. Now, again, this is expected, and so there's a lot of things that go into expect. Anytime we get into any of the XG, X points per game, X assists, there's assumptions that are made based off of statistical rules, right? Algorithms, things that sort of go into this. So there's ways that this could be inaccurate, but it also sort of, my whole thing with analytics, Eric, has always been, if the analytics tells me something, can I verify that with my eyes, right? And so we've been talking about this team for most of the year, saying they should have already won some games. They should have had some more points, and they haven't. So this is sort of showing them that they are a quote-unquote unlucky team, or maybe they're a team that is underperforming their actual points per game by a significant amount.
Yeah, we got to stop looking up charts here, because every time we do that, we see the Galaxy on an island all by themselves.
Right.
Whether it's the speed of the play and counterattacking or whatever we want to call it, they always seem to be an outlier by themselves. I kind of look at it in reverse of how you mentioned it. I always look at watch the game, and then I say, okay, it felt like the Galaxy did X or Y. So let me go look at the stats. Okay, that confirms, that backs up
Right.
what my eyes were telling me was happening. Or if it wasn't, it's like, well, let me go back and give this a second look. So we feel like the Galaxy has been playing better than their points that they're showing in the standings.
Right.
And this chart kind of confirms that. But at the same time, you look at the other side of the coin, you look at where St. Louis is at, where the Revolution is at, where LAFC is at, and they have the luck on their side. And so you can make that argument. Do you make your own luck? We were talking about Bruce Arena.
Right.
How does he get these players to land in his lap? And how does he get players who are burnouts on other teams to perform? At what point is he lucky? Or when this keeps happening over and over again, maybe he's not lucky. Maybe he's kind of figured out, how to game these systems and make these things work.
Yeah. Again, I think it's really interesting. We were joking around, but St. Louis sort of had that really fast start, and you're sort of like, I don't think that they can maintain it. And you just saw some of the goals they were scoring, and now they've come
They're
back.
still getting those goals.
Like they did, and they had a good game. But you also saw it start to correct a little bit, right? Because they had a couple games where it was like, oh well, stuff isn't going their way as much as it was, right? So really interesting. The whole problem with all of this, and when we look at the chart, is St. Louis can be bad for a little while and still maintain a place well above the playoff line, right? The LA Galaxy are going to have to be really, really good for a while in order to dig out of this hole that they're creating. So we always talk about, like, you can't win the championship in the first, 15 games or something like that, but you can lose it. And right now, the LA Galaxy are losing it. It doesn't, and it almost doesn't matter how well they play from here on out. By the way, Philip, a $2 super chat, and of course, a very good one for Hammer here. He says, week 34, don't peak too soon. That's right. Like, you just need to be hitting full steam ahead on that last game as you creep into the playoffs in that 8-9 spot. Chris Klein gets to keep his job after they win that. They just go. They just go.
Yeah. I changed my slogan for last year. So don't peak too soon used to be my slogan. My new slogan after last season, I'm sticking with it. Peak eventually. Yeah, let's eventually peak. Let's make sure that happens. So I have the same thing in my notes. You can't win the league in the first half of the season, but you can definitely dig a hole that's too deep to climb out of. And I think where it's concerning, and the Panda mentioned it on Monday, is you look at the point differential as far as they're 5 points out of a playoff spot, and you look at who the Shield winners are right now. They're 15 points out of first place or whatever you want to call it. And so you think, okay, over the past 3 years under Vanney and over the past maybe 4 or 5 years, can you trust an LA Galaxy team that is going to be poised to make a 5-game win streak run, and in this, they're on a 7-game slide. Are you going to trust this Galaxy team to go on a 7-game unbeaten run? I haven't seen it under Greg Vanney in the past 3 years. I haven't seen it under Guillermo Barros-Schelotto. Haven't seen it under Siggy Schmidt. In recent years, the Galaxy have not been a team that has put together a bunch of wins in a row. And that's the thing that concerns me, because we talk about our roulette wheel. If it keeps coming up red, eventually it's got to come up black. And I just haven't seen the other side of the coin land for this Galaxy team. And then when you look at the roster depth, the concern about the new players and kind of getting the team gelling, I don't know that this 6 or 7 game win streak that they're going to need to kind of right the ship. I don't trust that that's coming. And so that's where I keep going back to that. Are we, do we go to the Galaxy 2024, and is that where we throw all our attention? That's
what I thought.
It's all leaning this way. That's all roads point to, all of our eggs going into Galaxy 2024.
I thought that was your new slogan, was Galaxy 2024. Yeah.
It's gonna have to get there if the peak eventually is gonna drop off.
Longest win streak since 2000. Yeah, I know. I'm looking. So you started talking about it. I have it. So I was starting to pull it up. The longest win streak since 2014 is 5 games. It happened in 2014 and it happened in 2019. Okay. In the modern era, the LA Galaxy have never won more than 5 games in a row. All right. That's a lot. By the way, that's 15. What 3D? Yeah, that's 15 points.
That'll put them, see the crazy thing about that. And I think that that would put them tied with St. Louis, but then St. Louis would need to lose 5 games in a row to make that even. So it's not even an apples to apples comparison.
Right. So, and under Greg Vanney, the longest win streak the LA Galaxy have had is 2 games.
Right? 2 games. It's not even 3. Wow.
Yeah. It's 21 was 2 and 22 was 2. Now, Greg Vanney has this thing where they usually don't lose a whole bunch of games in a row, right? So, like, that's the other part of this. So we look at that's the longest single season win. The longest single season unbeaten, let's see, in 2018, they had 9 games unbeaten. 2014, they had 10 games unbeaten. That's really what you want to look this team
That's
to
our
do.
favorite game is not win streak, but unbeaten streak.
Right.
And you go from winless to unbeaten, all those funny little nuances.
Longest unbeaten streak last year was 6 games, and obviously none of those are happening so far. I haven't been able to add any to the 23 column yet because there hasn't been one. So just to sort of give you an idea what the LA Galaxy are up against. Jonathan Prince, by the way, Jonathan gives us a $5 super chat, says AEG must be stoned to keep climbing around. Happy 420 from Colorado, Galaxy 2024. There you go. See?
It's on brand from Colorado.
That is.
Yeah.
Scott said, Scott gave us a $10 super chat. It says, thank you, Josh and Eric, for your time. PSA, listen to your bodies. And if you need to go to the doctor, do it. Don't put it off. Scott, we're with you. Keep battling, buddy. We always know. We always appreciate your listenership here. Hopefully the Galaxy will give you something good to listen to after this weekend. So we're pulling for you. Rico's $2 super chat. Any update on the Ricky jacket? Been waiting. I've heard it's coming out next week, by the way. I'm just telling you that.
Really?
Right?
That looked like a 1-of-1 type thing. That's probably not going to be cheap. It looked like a custom job.
It's coming out.
Okay.
I mean,
there you go.
It was one of those. And then a $2 super chat. Wow, all bunched together, you guys. Good job. $2 super chat from David. Galaxy should get Mario Balotelli. Is that the cook, right? Because it couldn't possibly be the soccer player.
Batali? Is it
Mario Batali.
Batali.
Yes.
Balotelli. I was a fan of Balotelli. I thought he was, what the Galaxy needed at a point in time. I don't know if I don't know what his recent stance looked like, but I always you always kind of need a wild card like that on your team.
The
Galaxy doesn't have you have Douglas Costa, so maybe maybe Balotelli and Douglas Costa you don't want in the same locker room.
It'd be a red card parade. In all seriousness, I have to believe there's some sort of mental issues at work with Mario Balotelli, and so I don't know that I would be real interested to jump right in there and try to do any of that stuff. So. But so that's sort of it is. So good. I'm glad we got everybody there. I did. It was funny because we said Mario, and it just brought me back to my son is obsessed with Mario Kart and Mario and Luigi and all that, and he's a Mario, right? And so anytime, so he was asking me what's coming up because he's always interested in what we're doing or where we're going or all sorts of things. I'm like, well, Memorial Day is coming up pretty soon, and he goes, Mario Day. Right? And I was like, no, Memorial Day is there's a Mario Day? Or is that a holiday? And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, yes, but it's Memorial Day. But he doesn't care.
The movie's out. You might as well go watch the movie.
Yeah, it's Mario Day. He hasn't been to the movie theater yet. He's 3. I mean, he told me today that he wanted to watch the show with all the dragons. And I said, Game of Thrones? I think you're a little too young. And my wife goes, no, How to Train Your Dragon. I'm like, oh, okay. That one. So I turned it on for him. I go, we try turning it on, and then you're going to turn it off in a couple minutes. He's like, no, I'm going to watch it. I'm like, okay. And then 10 minutes in, he's like, oh, and he just chucks his iPad across the room. Like, great. Glad we have it. Anyway.
Good times. Well, if you're listening, since we've gone completely off the rails here, don't show the Red Wedding episode to your 3-year-old. Definitely that for Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And then go watch the Super Mario Brothers movie, especially if you're a person in our age range. The kids loved it, obviously, because it's a cartoon and it's silly, and it is what it is. It's Super Mario. But like all the little Easter eggs, if you grew up playing video games and in Nintendo, it's not just the Mario jokes that are in there. There's all these little hidden, Easter eggs that you'll appreciate if you're someone who grew up playing Nintendo. That movie got some bad reviews, but it gave me everything I wanted out of you know what you're getting. Super Mario.
It doesn't have to always be art. You know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be art. $5 super chat from Philip. Balotelli. While we're at it, bring back Gio and De Jong. All that with Costa. There you go. Just mix the crazy in. Galaxy 2024.
I think they could use some of that. Yeah.
Speaking of the Red Wedding episode, speaking of segues, let's talk real quick about the injury news. One is that Jonathan Bond, shoulder injury. Basically, Vanney went out on a little limb here and said he's questionable for next weekend, right? So Jonathan Bond coming back, questionable for next weekend. He's been out on the field the last couple of days. He'll keep progressing, and so Vanney says we'll sort of see how that goes. He said he would be possibly after that, more likely to be back into the starting fold. So not this weekend, not next weekend, probably the weekend after is sort of where he thinks that's going to go. Now,
I was going to say, we missed our segue. Jonathan Bond was at Universal Studios taking in Super Mario World that was our transition to get to Bond. So we missed opportunity there, but we got there eventually. So I'm excited to see.
Do they have a Super Mario World here in Hollywood?
Correct. It's new. Yeah. I know they built one in Japan first.
Right.
And then now it's here as well.
Okay. I'm gonna have to.
Well, there, not here.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to
Texas.
go.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to go. And, yeah. Okay. And now to the Red Wedding part. Caligari. Greg Vanney he's talking about injuries. Go watch the full press conference, by the way. I didn't hear this. Nobody had said anything. I think Damien was there and Damien Calhoun, Scott French were there covering, and I don't think there was anybody else. So it wasn't like fully covered, right? Like it was one of those. And those guys don't immediately run to Twitter and like post stuff. So the whole deal. So I got the video and I downloaded and I'm just listening, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, man. He goes, injuries, I think we're finally in the clear. He goes, outside of Bond. He goes, well, we had a freak accident. One of our players survived a freak accident and then just stopped. Right. And so I'm like, Scott,
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Scott,
Yeah.
don't you dare not ask a question right now. Right. And he's like, well, what freak accident? What happened? So he was talking about, by the way, I've been told that Lucas Caligari likes to go by Caligari because he's Brazilian and he only has one name, right? That's the whole idea.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we call him, so I will call him Caligari on here, but Greg calls him Lucas. So I just trying to keep everything. So anyway, so Caligari, he goes, Caligari, he's okay. So I'll preface that by saying Caligari is okay. In fact, he's been in training. He will be available to play, and he more than likely will start. So those are the things that you need to know as we go into this. But he said that Caligari was throwing some trash out. And so I would like to also point this out, that whenever he first said this, in my mind, I'm like, why is he throwing trash out at the field? Right? Like,
Yeah.
like they only
put it together.
Yeah,
it's a rookie thing. Right. The rookies have to take out the trash.
I'm like,
carry the ball bag. You know how it goes.
Yeah, but that seems weird. Like, shouldn't they have somebody to do that? So anyway, it wasn't at the field. I assume because this would be a situation that I don't think could survive at the field. Right? It wouldn't be one of those things that happen in the field. So he was probably at home, and he's going to take the trash out, like we've all done. And he goes to throw the trash probably up into the dumpster, and he brushes his leg with the bag, right? Because you're getting a little momentum, you're getting it swinging, you got to get it up there. Maybe it's a little heavy, right? He's a professional athlete. He's trying not to hurt his back. He's trying to do all these things to keeping it cool. So he does that. So he brushes his leg with the bag. Well, inside the bag was some glass, a glass bottle that had been broken. And apparently that cut his leg. Now, it didn't just cut his leg. It hit a vein in his leg. And
That's
Greg
brutal.
Vanney explained it as probably, quote unquote, a fountain of blood. Right? And
That's just what you want out of your new signing, having a fountain of blood, have him bleed out while taking out the trash in his, where are they living nowadays? Hermosa Beach, is that where
yeah, probably,
the apartment complex is?
South Bay for
South
sure.
Bay, somewhere in that area. So just of all the things that are going wrong for the Galaxy, this is just kind of perfectly on brand. You have a player get, cut by a glass bottle, and if he would have missed a game, that would be like very Galaxy with everything that's gone this season. But since he's been training, it seems like it is fine. But man, if you've ever cut yourself, either with glass or I was kind of making the joke off air or telling my anecdote, I had a tuna can one time where I cut my hand and, it just kept bleeding. Like when you start bleeding like that, that's not a great feeling. So I imagine being new to the country and kind of everything going, that must not have been a good time. But I'm glad he's doing well. It's just a flesh wound. He's fine. He put it together.
So Greg said that he made it. Lucas got to visit make his first trip to the ER in the United States, and got all bandaged up and was all good there. So, everything's okay. He's fine. People got mad at me, like I was saying, like I was trying to trick you guys into this whole thing. Like people were like, "Oh, I thought he was going to be out for the season." The way you put, I just literally almost told it the way Greg Vanney exactly told it because I was typing it out as he was saying it. So I think Greg kind of buried the lead on some of that stuff too. So anyway, he's fine. That seems about it for injuries. Everybody else is back and good to go. There's a lot of stuff that I think we have to cover from the press conference, and I want to get to that here in just a second. There's two things I want to get to before that, and one of them will lead us right into the press conference. This is one. Jonathan Tannenwald, at the Goalkeeper from the Philadelphia Inquirer, he tweeted out and quote tweeted an Orlando City tweet, and it basically said, in addition to our new weekly show, we're launching Kickoff 60 to get you ready for kickoff 1 hour before each match, exclusively on the Lion Nation app. He says, Jonathan goes, this is something we're starting to see from more MLS teams, as I said on SiriusXM last week. It is good for the soccer jobs market that teams are hiring a lot more video content creators now because the standards have been raised. So we had talked about this whenever Apple got it, but we had talked about the pre-show, right? There's always the pre-show that sort of leads into it, and for the most part, you're talking about 9 or 10 minutes of the LA Galaxy crew, whoever is doing the game, talking about the game leading up to it. For instance, this week the game is supposed to be on at 7:30. It'll kick off at 7:39. In between that 10 minutes, they will fill it with all of their little things that they want to cover. But teams can choose to put an hour show before that as well, and sort of really dive into all the stuff that is club specific. So, one is, I think the LA Galaxy should absolutely do this, because this is the way that you actually, create the fans and create, the content that you want it to be. You want to raise this bar up. And remember, Spectrum was kind of doing this stuff at the very beginning, right? And everybody
that's my
loved
note
it.
That I was going to add. Yeah, is that this is exactly when the Galaxy had the first Spectrum deal, having the lead up show where, you had former players and you had hosts kind of talking about the game leading up to it. You have, plenty of lead up time talking about it. And like you said, going over the club specific issues, kind of what's specific with all the streaks happening. I think the benefit of the Apple deal, and you have the different announcing teams, is you kind of get the announcing teams to get a feel for the league and go around and do different games. But the thing you miss out is that club-specific person who's following the team. So by having a team-specific show, you get that consistency if you're able to keep someone like a Joe Totino, or if it were Spectrum, someone like Nikki K, someone who's going to be the same consistent voice and face that you see every week, keeping it going. That's the part that's missing from the Apple TV deal. So if they're able to kind of make this work, it seems like a home run. And this is what we're talking about with the deal. Right now, we're seeing just the opening kind of salvo. There's going to be all these little bells and whistles that start to creep in once they need to figure out, how to kind of flesh out the Apple TV, the MLS season pass.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Mavinga also is one of the players that's out. Greg Vanney didn't give an update on him. I think it was probably just an oversight. Sometimes it's hard. As a reporter, you have to remember all the guys who are supposed to be injured, because you have to ask the coach. And a lot of times the coach is like, injured guys aren't really my thing, because I have to deal with the guys who can actually play, right? And so a lot of times that's what happens. So Mavinga was supposed to be an ankle injury of some time. They didn't know how severe that was. And so, I think that, in the 3 to 4 weeks is probably, a pretty good guess if you're going to guess on that. So that's going to be a little change. But Kosaros should be back, right? So that's why Vanney's not thinking about Mavinga, because he's like, I got Kosaros back. Sega can back him up. I'm good. So Martin Kosaros should be back. And so that's one of the things. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about with this. The other thing I wanted to talk about that leads us into this is the MLS primary transfer window closes in 4 days now. So that closes on April 24th. Greg Vanney acknowledged that it was ticking down and he actually looked at his watch and said, yeah, it feels like just a few hours here, the whole deal. And that really is the case. So let's get you a little update from the press availability and what Greg Vanney had to say on the transfer window. Again, the full press conference is available on our YouTube page, and you can find that anywhere. I always encourage you to listen to the whole thing. Ricky Puig is on there. Jonathan Klinsmann is on there. You'll always learn something from those. Even when you think that, like me, I'm like, I know it all. I don't need to listen. I'm like, oh no, there's lots of stuff that was in here. I have a whole bunch of notes on here. It's
good background noise. Put it on in the background while you're cleaning, while you're doing the dishes. That's the ideal spot to listen to these press releases.
Yeah. So here's what he said about the transfer window. He says, and one of the things, and again, these will sort of be paraphrases with some exact quotes sort of thrown in, but he says it's been an incredible series of events with every player that they've been in communication with. Windows in the winter aren't so easy. Teams are playing for European spots, relegation spots, cup finals, all those things. And so they're reluctant to give up their players. A lot of times the player is eager to come, but the club isn't, right? Because the club is like, we can't replace them with anybody. Our window's closed and we have all these games. It's funny because we talked about Gruel in the Austrian Bundesliga, and this was exactly the reason that was sort of given, that they said, hey, we have a big cup game coming up on the 30th and we're not going to release them before that because we need them to play in that. And it's sort of, and so the Galaxy are sort of behind that. Now, one thing Greg Vanney said was, with the TAM money, it's really not enough to sort of overpower a team with money to be like, hey, I don't care. We'll pay you more money. And I don't think they have the full TAM amount available either. So they're trying to do some sort of balancing act on this. So he says that they have a good list of players. It could be very close. And he said in the next 2 to 4 hours, which was basically, around 12:30 today, he said that he expected to know a lot more on the progressions with some of the talks that they were having with some of the players. He says now, instead of 1 to 2 players, he says he expects to get 1 in. I think that they're still leaving some room for that summer transfer window internally because we are pretty we're pretty certain that the LA Galaxy are going to still find that they have a need somewhere, and they may be able to go out and get that. And one of the things they did was bring in a goalkeeper, right? Mitrovic.
I think Mitrovic is a.
Yeah,
I don't know if he has the same name of a player that already exists. Yeah, we can look at it. But the MLS website had teams to watch for during this as the transfer window closes, and obviously the Galaxy were on that list because of everything that they have going on in the summer, and then the need at winger. I think the fact that Gruel is on there, maybe he's the only name that we've seen pop up, so it kind of makes sense that maybe it was a negotiating ploy. We can't release him right now, so maybe that's just a way to get them to go with the transfer price to get that up. So that could be one way to get it. But the other thing you need to consider is also players who are being released. So you do have a lot of players around the league who are being released who you're going to be able to possibly make those moves and get it going. But the only frustrating part to me is we've heard Vanney several times say, we possibly have a winger coming in. He said that months ago.
Yep.
And here we are 2 months later.
Yep.
Still no winger. We're still it reminds me of if you've watched I Think You Should Leave, the Tim Robinson show. It's a sketch comedy show. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. But basically there's a guy who there's a hot dog mobile and it's crashed into a building. And then there's a guy in a hot dog suit and he goes, how could this possibly have happened? Who could have possibly have done this? It's like, Vanney, you're the guy who signs people. You're the one who brings people in. She's like, yeah, maybe we can get a player in. Yeah, you're the guy who brings the people in. So yeah, you should know when we should have players coming in. So it's just, that's a frustrating part. We've been hearing that a winger is coming. And, here we are 4 days before the window. It's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, Novak Mitrovic, right? And so I think they're still waiting for him to arrive. I don't think I've seen him yet in that. Listen, not a huge thing that they actually have to happen. But what it does do is possibly give them a chance to trade a goalkeeper in the summertime in order to get something that they want, right? I mean, that sort of seems. Now, I'm with you. With Greg Vanney, it's like, Greg, you can't complain that you're running out of time when you guys have waited this long. You can, and I think there's something to it. They wanted to be deliberate. They wanted to wait because they wanted to see what holes they had in the roster that they weren't going to be able to plug, right? Like
we knew these holes in February, in January.
Yeah, but they brought in Tyler Boyd, right? So that's a winger. They expected Douglas Costa to play, right? And they expected Memo Rodriguez to be a backup, not in the center back, not in the right or the winger position. And Greg Vanney even said it again today, right? So, I mean, there's some things that have sort of delayed probably the progression of what they thought was going to happen, but it's still their fault. Like, it's still...
Well, and this also was supposed to be the Efrain Alvarez year. Again, year 5.
Right.
This is the year.
Right. Well, and you didn't know that before. And before we all heard this was the year, right? And
this was the year.
Even Alvarez was like, "This is the year. It has to be my year. This has to be my year. I'm gonna do it." Right. And there was all the build up, and he got the 7 shirt and all that stuff. So that needed a little time to play itself out as well. Now, we could certainly say that we probably saw that coming because we've played this game before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to give the guy a chance, and you did. So, but I don't think that leaves Vanney off the hook at all for any of this. And if I'm him, I also string Chris Klein, around for this as well, because you're the reason that we don't have a summer transfer window. It could be that we could have gotten the guys we wanted to get in. We brought them in. We played to the summer, and then we're going to find somebody on the international transfer market. We're going to bring them in. We're going to buy out Douglas Costa in the summertime because, it's just not working, the whole deal. Like, there's stuff that you could have been a lot more flexible about that you can't be now because of the fines. So you have $1 million less in general allocation money than I'm sure you'd like to have right now. Although they signed with Julian Araujo going away, they probably got a good chunk of cash as well, right? So there's like these gives and takes, but you can't be saying that you're running out of time and you don't know really if you're going to get it through. And Vanney says he felt confident. He feels confident they're going to get a guy in and that they have the guys that they want and the whole deal. But again, you can invest all your eggs in a basket here towards the end and get nothing because you could be like, yeah, we got a deal. Oh, it fell through at the very end. And now we don't have time to get to anybody else. And that's going to be it. The LA Galaxy are not going to get any more internationals into this team unless it's a free agent before that summer transfer window comes in, because as far as I know, the restriction is only in the window. And if there's a free agent that's outside of that, you might be able to sign a free agent, right? So the LA Galaxy might even be able to be like, hey, we're going to sign this guy and then wait till that summer transfer window ends and then bring him in on a free agent after after the window, because the restriction is just within that window, as far as I know. Yes.
But my question is when the ITC piece of it comes on board, because if they're a free agent, obviously you can sign them at any time. But if the issue is you're not able to,
right in the summer,
get the ITC
in the summer transfer,
in the summer,
summer.
Yeah, so that's where it gets.
The wording is very specific. It's in the summer transfer window. So as long as you could sign a free agent one day before the window or one day after the window, as far as I know, that's fair game, because the ITC ban, or the international transfer ban, is for the summer window. Right, I know. Yeah,
that's where I hit you with the Taylor Trollman gift. What are we doing?
What
does this mean something? Does this not mean something? The one thing that I just want to add to this point is I don't know that there's tons of Chris Klein defenders, but I think the argument could be made, well, if these signings where the Galaxy are being sanctioned and they're they have this was under Dennis DeClosa and with other coaches, and so it wasn't necessarily Klein's fault. But remember, he was the president of the club, overseeing everything, lack of institutional control. Right. So it does ultimately fall on him.
Yes.
And if you read some of the tea leaves around, how that information got out, that the Galaxy, were outside of the rules, it could be someone who has a grudge against a Galaxy front office. And again, who's in charge of the Galaxy front office? It's Chris Klein. So ultimately, whether he was the actual person who signed the deal that was outside of the rules or not, it ultimately still comes back to him and his doing, and why you have, supporters feeling the way they feel, because it's really hamstrung the club. We're struggling to get players anyway, and then you add this layer on top of it. A lot of the issues that you see this season go back to roster construction, and that's why Galaxy 2024. Yeah. Put all your eggs in that basket.
Should we make a T-shirt that says Galaxy 2024? So that's sort of where we sit on that. Vanney very clearly said in this press conference, he basically said, where do you need help? And he's like, well, we need production and pace in the wide areas. We need guys who create space, get in the box. He said that Memo is more of a central player. He wants a dynamic player who's able to run in behind the lines. Something that, and he said very honestly, he said something that Sam and Kevin, Sam Grantier and Kevin Cabral gave us at times through last year, right? And that is what they're missing, and you can see that. I mean, Tyler Boyd, for all that he has done, has played more inside than I would like, and it seems like Greg Vanney's okay with that. I would prefer he actually stay more outside and use some of his speed to get in behind lines, because I think he's a quick guy. And he has the ability to do that. I think he can stretch defenses that way. But again, get somebody on the other side who can do that as well. And all of a sudden now you can really play, and you can unbalance some teams. Douglas Costa isn't going to run by people in terms of in a long distance. He's not a guy who's simply going to take off and beat everybody down that side. So Tyler Boyd sort of has to be that width. It's funny because Austin is struggling with a lot of the things the LA Galaxy are as well. Yeah, and I would say similar. They're also having width issues and chance creation issues. And so really you want that. You need somebody who's going to be able to get in the box, create assists, take shots, score goals. It's a lot of things, but you have to get that in a TAM package too, and probably not max TAM package. It's probably, in a $700,000 to $1 million package for a player. That's my guess.
Yeah, but when you look at leagues who are not, maybe your top 3 leagues, salaries are they're in that range. You can get players, from the French league, from South American leagues, that probably at a much lower cost.
Right.
That's kind of in range. So when you talk about player salaries, transfer fees is where you see all the splashes, and it's like, man, these players are expensive. But when you actually break down the weekly salaries or the season salaries, it's a lot more in line with most of the world. MLS isn't as far behind as a lot of the places as it may seem.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was funny. Vanney did wax a little bit on Douglas Costa, asked about Douglas Costa, asked if he was concerned about the mental mistakes, about the maturity, all those things. Vanney says he's not really concerned. That's a quote. He's not really concerned. Which means that you are concerned.
Kind of concerned.
Yeah, he's kind of concerned. But he also stated that he's very aware of those actions. He says that he's had conversations with Douglas Costa, and he's told him he needs to focus on what matters. Vanney very clearly said he has a tendency to lose his mind in moments. I mean, yep, the whole
understatement of the year.
Right. He says if he can focus on what matters, and if he can do that, then he can be helpful. If not, he won't be helpful to us. Straight up. As much as Vanney wants to be like a rah-rah for Douglas Costa and be like, he can't do these things, that's about as big of an indictment as you'll probably ever hear from a coach on a player that is like not holding up his end of the bargain, right? Especially a quote-unquote world-class player like Douglas Costa. Like, he doesn't understand how this works, and he doesn't understand that he needs to be on the field in order to be productive.
Yeah, Vanney's really in no man's land with Douglas Costa, because if you blast him, he's already not performing at a high level. Like you said, loses his mind in moments. And so now if you lose the trust of your coach, then you're really going to lose him. Now, what incentive does Costa have to come back and play well at all? If the players have issue with him, the coach has issue with him, like what's the point? But he also can't come out publicly and say, Douglas Costa, he's got it together. It's just a matter of, getting the right touches and falling in line, because everyone, with eyeballs can see that's obviously not, he's not a step away. He's not almost there. He's wasted. He's done. He's washed at this point. It's done. As hopeful as we were, and we thought things were going to happen, and maybe there's flashes and moments in there that could still happen, but we're not going to see a consistent production from Douglas Costa in a Galaxy shirt. It's just not going to happen. But he can't say that.
Right. He can't say that. If it did happen, the LA Galaxy, remember we were talking about stretching wins together and doing that stuff. The LA Galaxy could really do that. He talked about him, and that's simplifying a lot of things. But if Douglas Costa became a productive member of this LA Galaxy team, which he has failed to do so far in the seasons, I'm not saying he can't, he is capable of it, absolutely capable of it. I think even at his age and his physical condition on this team right now, he's capable of being a productive member of this team. And if they did that, I think the Galaxy could string wins together, because he's a dangerous piece. He's going to draw people to him. He's going to create spaces. But I don't think you can count on that. That's tough.
So when you say productive piece of this team, are you thinking like an off the bench? Like if he took an off the bench role, super sub thing? Is that
no? He has to be a starter. He has to start at $4.5 million.
But I don't think he could be a constructive part of this team. I think we've seen the sample size. We've seen where he's at. We've seen his actions on the field.
You're saying I think
he's out of tickets.
You're saying he's incapable of it, and I don't agree with that, because he's a world-class player. He's absolutely capable of it. What does he want to do it?
I think he's shown that he's not that, but I think that's where it's maybe semantic. He's not capable of it because he's not. If he was capable of it, he'd do it. So he's not doing it, so he's not capable of it.
No, I don't agree with that, because this is his decision. He gets to decide whether he's capable of it. This is a mental choice
that makes him incapable.
No, it doesn't, because it makes him perfectly capable if he chooses to do it. It's up to him to choose it. Greg Vanney basically said this. He says he's trained hard, he looks good in training, but he needs to get into a rhythm of these things that, like, where he has these positive outcomes to the things that he's doing. And Greg doesn't. If you listen very carefully, Greg isn't counting on that being. He very clearly says, that if he does that, then he can be helpful to us. He can be that guy. And if he doesn't do that, then he's not going to be any help to us whatsoever. And I don't think Vanney has he's sort of sitting there going, like, it's up to him. I've talked to him. He knows what he needs to do. And if he does the things that we've asked him to do, he will be a productive part of this team. If he chooses not to do those things, if he chooses to go and lose his mind in moments, then he's not going to be. But I think it's outrageous to say that somebody as world-class as Douglas Costa isn't capable of the things that he's supposed to be doing. He is. We've seen it. It just has. It's up to him.
Then I could say I'm capable of starting on the wing for the LA. Technically, if I wanted to, get a personal trainer and invest millions and start getting into my testosterone therapy. And
how old are you?
I technically.
How old are you?
39 years old.
No.
Yeah, technically I'm capable of doing that.
No,
it's
that's
technically possible. But no, it's not going to happen.
Don't cheapen that. You've never been a professional athlete. All right, you've never been a world-class player at a top. No, but it's a ridiculous point. The bottom line is, I'm trying to say is that it is up to him to decide what he wants to do. And if he decides that he doesn't want to do it, it's all on him. If he decides he does want to do it, it's all on him. He could absolutely be a difference maker in Major League Soccer. You can see it in little tiny bits. You're like, man, if he could just do this on a consistent basis, the Galaxy could find something there, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen. In fact, I was the one who was like, I think Douglas Costa is going to have the year, and then he goes and does the thing in Houston. If it was up to me, I would have bought him out. He would never be on this team again, because you cannot trust him. You can't trust him to do anything that you want him to do. You can't trust him to keep his So what happens in a tight game in Orlando? You're in Orlando, it's hot and it's humid, right? And this is a guy who's played in those conditions. Are you trusting Douglas Costa with coming onto the field and being a productive member? Are you trusting him to be able to do the things without losing his head in the heat with a referee that's maybe tired from running back and forth and doesn't want to be there? Maybe it's raining sideways and nobody wants to be there, and Douglas Costa's going to be the guy who leads them through this? No, but this is the bed that they've made him. Is he capable of doing it? Absolutely. Would he? I don't think he does.
But okay. I think we can just keep going, sir, because I feel like if he wanted to, he would.
Yes.
If he's capable of it, what's stopping him from doing it? What is the barrier of him?
Great question.
Getting it done. Because if he's capable of it, it's not like there's other clubs offering millions. It's not like a Champions League team needs to add him to a roster. If he was capable of doing it, he should be showing that, so he can make whatever his next move is.
Yep.
Because it seems like whatever happens at the end of this contract, that big paycheck isn't coming anymore. So if he was capable of it, he should be showing it. So that's where I go back to maybe he's not capable of it. I got a lot of hate for trying to, doing our favorite thing, compare ourselves to professional athletes.
And here I am. I'm trying to defend Costa in a way, but I don't really want to defend him either. It's like I think I've just run out of, because I was right there. I was like, Costa with the right environment, right,
and getting things going. We've done this song and dance so many times that to me he's just ran out of those. I'm out of credits. Like I'm done. I'm done hoping and wishing and saying if the right environment, if he got his boots laced up the right way, and if he just can do this, just can do that. We've done this. We've ran in circles around this, and he's shown that it's not going to happen. So I'm just not going to hold my breath. To your point where you're saying, is he capable of it? Yeah, I guess sure. Technically, he's more capable of it than you or I.
Right.
But I'm not going to make it an expectation.
David, $5 super chat says Galaxy are headed the same way DC United are, as a team that won titles in the past but don't win titles anymore. Glass half empty on that. Yeah, certainly if they continue in this trajectory. But I actually thought their trajectory was I would agree with Greg Vanney. It was this way at the end of last year. Now it's this. I don't know which way they're going to go. They absolutely could crash out of this season and not make the playoffs, which would be an absolute disaster, right? And probably everybody gets fired if that happens. But I've said that before, and that hasn't happened. So I will reserve judgment on that. It's a little too crying my Cheerios for me. Oh, we're going to go the same way as DC United. Yeah, absolutely, it could.
But
they're capable. They're capable of doing that.
The slight difference is, as much as we're down on this Galaxy team right now, I think there is a genuine effort to try to right the ship. It's not working. we're not there, and it's not there yet. But I think there is an effort. Bad moves, bad signings, salary being struck by salaries, injuries, all these things. I don't think it's from lack of effort. I just think there's been a lot of swings and misses. So I think that's the difference. With DC United, I don't, and maybe that's just because I'm out of market. I'm not in tune with everything happening there. It doesn't feel like they're pushing as hard to be in that conversation, to be a top team, to be in there. I feel like the Galaxy are making those, the ambition to make those moves. It's just not working. So I'm not all the way down there yet to where saying this team is never going to, be in the interest of winning trophies again. I think they are.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen this season, but I think the people around this club and the supporters and the fan base is not going to let this club, die. You see where we're at right now. People are going to keep pushing to make this club, put it back on the top where it belongs.
I think the Galaxy absolutely could win trophies this year. Wooden spoon, probably. Romina,
right.
Romina, $5 super chat. By the way, do you think it's completely out of the realm the LA Galaxy could be in an MLS Cup final this year?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I don't see this team going in an MLS Cup final. Maybe an Open Cup with how late they join in the rounds.
Right.
I can see maybe getting lucky, getting the right bounces, but yeah, not an MLS Cup. I don't see it.
Romina, $5 super chat. Can't wait for the Galaxy's first win of the season. I think we all need a game day dance ritual. I mean, you have one usually, so
usually,
you're
keep an
there.
eye out, Romina. Appreciate you.
Sergio says $2 super chat says it's coming this weekend. Either he's coming to the game this weekend, or a win is coming to the game this weekend.
I'm really glad you added to the game because you were scaring me there with what you're going to say.
Yeah, no worry, I got you. In living color abroad, Costa is not world class. Was good 8 years ago. $2. Yeah. He still has more technical ability than a lot of the LA Galaxy players. If you've seen him run or do anything, like he could still boss MLS around as much as he wants to. Again, if he wants to, I don't know if he does.
But
maybe he wants to go to Coachella again. I don't know. He was actually at the game. I should point out.
Yeah, and because there were a lot of Coachella jokes, but yeah, if he would have been caught there, that would have been bad news. I did see it in the chat as well, and I want to shout it out that part of the reason why you could see him losing his head and getting frustrated is because in his mind, he wants to do the things with the technical ability and the speed and beat players 1v1, and it's not working. And then because it's not working, then he's losing his head. Right. So I think there's something to that as well.
Aude is ready to go 90 minutes, Greg said. He's competing for a spot, physically, mentally settled in, played a ton of games in the U20 South American games, right? So he is, he thinks that he's ready to go. Showed just a couple minutes. I'm not here to make any decisions on just, a brief stint. Tall, though. I do like that. I do like it. He looks
super young, too. He's another guy. He's got a baby face on him.
But he's
I was
giant.
like, man, is this guy in 8th grade? But he's lanky and he's...
Yeah, it's like if Ricky Pooge suddenly, put stilts on and ran through. They, sort of have the same boyish good looks and, just that type of thing, except he's, 6 feet tall. So,
And the one difference, we mentioned this with Caligari, they look like professional outside backs. Okay, this is a nice thing to have someone that you could feel is going to be a consistent part of this team. The disconnect that you saw with the passing and with the being on the same page of the team as his teammates, that's not there. And that's the piece why you want to see him go 90 minutes and you want to see him get as many minutes as possible because you see the potential in there. And, just watching him, how he carries himself on the field and going after the ball. So I felt at ease, okay, I know I like where Aude is going to get going, but the chemistry, knowing where to place the ball, where the players are going to run, that's the piece that needs to come. That disconnect was happening, and it was evident in that game when he came into the field.
Yeah, you could see he was missing guys. He just didn't know quite where to put where they want the ball, right? And that's an important part as this sort of all goes in. Again, as far as the LA Galaxy are probably concerned, they have the most full strength lineup they're going to have. Douglas Costa is available for this game. There was concerns, or at least some speculation, myself included, that he was going to be out multiple games because MLS was going to drop an additional suspension. Vanney said he'd be available this weekend for selection. We'll see if he plays again. I was sort of the opinion that he should never play again. But if you're going to be, if he's going to be on the team,
he's
then
available.
Then
and we don't have a winger.
Then you might as well play. I don't know what else you're going to do.
I am surprised with the violence of how hard he brought him down and just how it was completely not a soccer tackle or a soccer move. I am shocked it wasn't more than one.
Right. Aude may say he's 5'11". He feels 6 foot. He's still growing. He's that young. So he's 6 feet. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, with the soft ground studs, on cement, he's definitely.
When you have Ricky Pooge on your team, you get to add 2 inches to whatever your height is automatically. Because I think Ricky says he's 5'10" and a half, and he's 5'3". All right, let's get to the game against Austin. Are you ready? Did you have? We didn't even talk about whether or not. Yeah,
okay. Got a little something.
Okay. I just didn't want to say anything without, just might as well plan it now. It's one of those. Wanted to get you ready, and we're going to have your dramatic game preview. So the LA Galaxy facing off against Austin FC on Saturday, April 22nd. The game kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Excuse me, TV time is 7:30 p.m. Kickoff is 7:39 p.m. And here with your dramatic game preview is the Hammer himself. So take it away, Hammer.
The Galaxy aren't exactly living the high life ever after a dismal start to the season, but they will be looking to spark it up against Austin FC as they come into Dignity Health Sports Park this Saturday, where the Galaxy are still without the services of their keeper, Jonathan Bond. Their other Jonathan, Klinsmann that is, will need to munch up the ball as much as possible at every opportunity that he gets. And while Ricky Pooge was pretty dope last season, he's finally showing the indications of a player who will be, if we're being blunt, will need to carry this team on his shoulders. So whether you're rolling up to the digs on Saturday or passing it around with friends at a watch party, let's see if the Galaxy can get it together and make us feel all right.
All right. Oh wait, that was.
I didn't go that route.
It's okay.
Went a little bit of a different route. For those of you in Colorado who are celebrating today,
I understand.
If you caught some of those references.
I understand. I thought you were talking about the colors of the jersey that the LA Galaxy will be wearing. By the way, if you're looking for that, these jerseys.
Yeah, I was going to say we didn't talk about the jerseys.
Well, it was part of this game. I wanted to put it in. Once again, against Austin at home, the LA Galaxy, I swear every time they play Austin, it has to be, the Earth Day colors and everything else going on. So the LA Galaxy will be in the light blue, and then Austin will be in the black/dark blue. So it'll look like, and the great thing is that every game will look exactly the same. So whenever you go through the highlights, it's going to look exactly the same. It'll be annoying and everything else that we sort of go through there. So yeah, that's happening. These jerseys will be for sale. There's some auction ones as well if you're interested. Just some details on them. Again, they're made from recycled ocean plastic. It's a big deal. Yeah, there's Auda is sort of looking like he's a Mickey Mouse Club member right there. So this is all.
You could tell his youth in that picture.
Yeah, it's really interesting just to see the jersey. So don't be surprised whenever you see him come out of the field and everything that's going on. As we sort of looked at the standings and everything that we have. Yeah.
Can I go back to the kits? Because I'm on the show. We got to do kit talk. To me, when I don't know if this is always the case. Now it says we're made in part with recycled materials. Right. I felt like it used to be made entirely. So I don't know if they changed that or what happened. And then the other piece of it is when they first came out with these, Save the Planet Parley jerseys. I don't think they have, that same partnership, or it's not as evident on this one. I felt like the plain white and the gray was like too plain. Right. And then in between they kind of figured it out. And I feel like this went all the way in the other direction. It feels like it's kitchenware from like TJ Maxx or Marshall's, where you get the butter tray and it says butter. Yep. It's like in plastic waste, so it says in plastic waste on the jersey. I just feel like they went too far in the other direction with the prints. They kind of need to find that nice medium with maybe just a nice ocean tone and keep it simple. I feel like maybe a couple years ago, the Zlatan area where they just had a nice plain teal jersey. I feel like that was the way to go. This feels like it went too far in the other direction. And that's it. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Commercial Underground said Apple adds multi-view just as every team wears the same jersey. Can you imagine having 4 games up on the screen at the same time and being like,
oh, that's going to be rough.
I have no idea. I mean, that's just, it boggles the mind. That's why I don't like it. It's just too much of the same. And yet they do it every year because I'm sure it makes them money and they feel good about themselves at night.
I get to sell an extra kit.
Yeah, that's about it.
I get it. Yeah, I fall victim to this all the time.
Again, the game can be found on MLS Season Pass. That's on Apple TV. This game not free. It's behind the paywall. And the game will kick off at 7:39 p.m. So 7:30 TV start time. 9 minutes later, the Galaxy and Austin will kick off. If you look, as we sort of mentioned earlier, Austin and the LA Galaxy sort of in similar situations. Austin, however, has won twice. So they have those points. So they have 8 points, just 5 points ahead of the LA Galaxy. Whenever you look at it, it's one of those struggle teams that if you've looked at them from last year to this year, you can certainly see that they're not exactly firing on all cylinders right now. Austin is winless in their last 4, so that's 0-2-2. They're 21st in the Supporters' Shield, 10th in the Western Conference, and plus 5 points on the LA Galaxy. They're coming off a 0-0 draw with Vancouver at Q2, so this was in Austin. If you go back and watch the highlights from that game, and you can look at the stats, and certainly Austin had the lion's share of possession, but you look at that game, Vancouver was the more dangerous team. It is so crazy, Eric, whenever you look at this, that like you sort of get LA Galaxy vibes. If I showed you this and it wasn't if it wasn't green, this passing network with the average positions could very well be an LA Galaxy passing network. A lack of width in some areas, but they're doing okay. And then the other crazy one for me is, oh my God, the XG is such an LA Galaxy thing. Tick up, tick up. Tick up, tick up, tick up.
Little by little.
There are no clear-cut chances in any of their XGs in that Vancouver game. And they're a team that is underperforming. Again, winless in 4 and sort of where that is. You have guys like Diego Fagundes possibly out. They're talking about possibly a lower body injury on him. Sebastian Driussi, who was just lighting the whole place on fire last year. 22 goals last season.
He was an MVP candidate.
An MVP candidate. He had 1 goal in his first 7 games. This year. So he's not really getting started. And then I was sort of listening to the game preview and they said they're not creating the chances again, going back to the XG. They're not creating those clear-cut chances. Sounds like we're talking about the LA Galaxy in a lot of ways, right? So
when you say that their leading goal scorer is their left back, John Gallagher is the one who has the lion's share of their goals. So that kind of tells you a lot. The one thing I'll say about the passing network, again, everything that you're saying sounds very similar to the Galaxy. Holding possession, but not getting the better of the chances. I will say that if you look at the passing network against LAFC, the Galaxy is starting to get wider. So I think that is something where, if they can keep that same momentum, and I think that's going to benefit them that Austin is traveling, the Galaxy having a home game, being able to stay home, not have the travel that's involved. I think, I hate to say it, here we are getting excited, but all the signs are pointing like this should be a winnable game for the Galaxy at home. This is not, the big bad Austin that was, Shield contenders last season. A lot of the same faces, with Driussi, with, Urruti, who they have playing up front. Giassi Zardes.
I was going to say Zardes is
an
on that
addition
team.
that they have, going there. A lot of the same faces. Nick Lima is the guy is there, Stuver in goal. Same faces, but the play on the field has taken a dip very similar to the LA Galaxy. So maybe this is the chance where they can finally kind of put it together.
Philip gave us a $2 super chat, said odds Costa gets another red this Saturday. I mean, it's a more than zero chance, right? Yeah. That's absolutely. So you could see it. So yeah, anyway, that's where that goes. I will say this, the last time these teams played, LA Galaxy ended up beating Austin 4-1. This is a weird game. This is the game that in the third minute, Chicharito had a penalty kick and he missed. It was saved by Stuver. And so then you're like, oh, well, the LA Galaxy are going to fall. And then Austin scores the first goal in the second half. And you're like, it's over. Pack it up. The LA Galaxy aren't going to win this game, right? The whole deal. And then the LA Galaxy and Dejan Joveljic went off. Joveljic, a second half sub in this. He had 2 goals, 2 assists. Chicharito, Efrain Alvarez also getting on that. So 4 unanswered goals. The Galaxy were able to win that game 4-1. It is also a team that in 4 meetings, the LA Galaxy have 3 wins against. So, again, as we sort of look at this and say, okay, you're sort of getting in that it feels like you're in that rhythm against these guys, and these guys are hurting for points. Just listening to them talk and sort of their pre in the Galaxy prep. First of all, Josh Wolf said Puig whenever he was talking about Ricky, and so already that's
Dodger
basically
fan,
basically pulling up the L as we speak. For him. So, it's really interesting. Let me give you some game info. Also, I just want to make an observation, perhaps, on this particular graphic. Tell me where you see the LA Galaxy logo, and if you could point it out to me, I'd love to see it.
Is it?
There isn't one.
Okay, I was going to say, is it on a jersey in the background? But no, that's just that's the Parley print. That's not. The crest isn't on there.
It's very lightly touched, right? I don't know. Usually I'm used to seeing the LA Galaxy logo peppered on everything I ever. Well, mostly because I do it too, especially on the show.
Like they're doing a rebrand.
You have the quasars in here a little bit, but it's just a little bit of a lighter touch on this. Anyway, 3:30 p.m. parking lots open. 6 p.m. stadium gates open. Soccer Fest begins at 6 p.m. 6:45 is warm up. 7:30 Soccer Fest ends, and the kickoff is at 7:39. They didn't put that on there, but I'll tell you, 7:39 is whenever the game actually kicks off. So you're going to want to be there. All right. Is there anything that you really expect from this game? Because this is 2 teams who like possession. We said this about Seattle. Who's going to win the possession battle? So far, the Galaxy has won every possession battle.
Correct. And I think when Seattle was coming in, I think for whatever reason, whether it's fair or not, I think the home team usually ends up winning that battle when there's a question of style of play of where it's going to land. So I feel like because the Galaxy are at home, they're going to win that possession battle, and that's going to be where they're able to take the game. I go back to, the game they played last season against Austin, where Dejan basically decided to go into God mode and start assisting on bicycle kicks and just score.
Right.
I have that I go back to that, and here I am going to compare myself to a professional athlete one more time. Right. Sometimes as a striker, when you see teams on the schedule and you're like, oh, I know this team. I've scored against this team. I have their number. Sometimes it's just that little mental hoop that you don't need to jump over, as opposed to I haven't scored in 4 games.
Right.
I've never scored against this team, or I've never, scored in the playoffs, and just creates that mental hurdle, whether it's intentional or not. But when you see a team on the schedule, oh, this is the team that I went off on last season, that might just give Dejan that little extra edge where this becomes like the Dejan game where he finally gets his mojo back. I feel like there's something, whether that doesn't make sense in terms of like year to year and season to season, but we saw this happen with Ima Boateng and RSL. And sometimes, you just have a team's number. We see it with Colorado when they come in and play the Galaxy. Sometimes it just works out that way. And I feel like if Dejan can kind of look at this and say, okay, we've had success against this team last season. I can get rid of that mental hurdle. I feel like Dejan is going to be a player who you need to watch. We saw Chicharito creating things, but he maybe went a little bit longer than maybe it was anticipated, because we saw that he was going to get subbed off,
right?
But he ended up staying on the field. So maybe his stint is shorter in this game, and we see Dejan come on and kind of capture some of that magic. That's the player who I'd be keeping an eye out on for this game.
this almost seems like the slump buster for the LA Galaxy. This is the team you want to sort of face, especially after that. And Vanney's saying, he expects the same intensity against LAFC, quite honestly, just because he goes, we have to find a way to win games. And if that just means we're going to over-effort everything, then we're going to over-effort for the next couple of weeks, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This team needs to learn how to win this season, needs to learn how to put in the effort. And I think for Vanney, it's going to be a real test of his system once again. If your system demands perfection and you can't make any mistakes, then isn't it time to change the system? I mean, we talked about the 3-5-2. Aude could probably fit into the 3-5-2 pretty well with Jalen Neal, with Cáceres as well, if you wanted to go and do that. You also have the ability to move Raheem Edwards up into an attack with Aude there. Aude maybe starting and Edwards maybe coming off the bench in this game. I mean, there's some little interesting things that I think you're going to find. I think Caligari, from all indication from Greg, is fine and should play. So you have probably your preferred back four for maybe the first time this season. With
that is going to be exciting to see them all playing together at the same time. Your Galaxy 2024 backline.
Yeah. It really, I mean, you're not wrong, because this is a young, 19, 20. There's 3 19, 20-year-olds on that whole back line, and then Cáceres, right? And the whole deal. Cáceres has a lot to make up for, too, because his suspension likely costs them the game against LAFC as well, whenever you look at the mistakes that happened at center back, and they probably don't happen if Cáceres is there. He likely doesn't get injured the way Mavinga got injured. I mean, you can always say, well, he could have gotten injured too. Yeah, but then Mavinga comes on. I mean, it's like there's a different level to that. So I think that you're not sort of put in a position to play Sega Koulibaly. Listen, I'll take Sega Koulibaly over Zavaleta any day. I don't care if Zavaleta has played 12 games in a row for whatever team he's playing for, and Sega just started warming up 10 minutes prior. I'm not a Zavaleta fan.
I was right there with you, but I think after what we saw from Sega last week, how he played last season, I thought he was, I thought it was almost unfair that he lost that center back spot. I felt like he deserved to retain it. But after what I saw last week and him not getting any minutes, I would have taken Zavaleta, who, is coming off playing with his national team. I think there's a conversation to be had there after the disastrous performance that he had. I did see in the chat, so someone mentioned, that Boateng played for RSL. I did not say he played for RSL. He always played well against RSL.
Yes.
That was like his team where he got up for those games for whatever reason.
He was the owner of Real Salt Lake. I think that was a Wikipedia insert at one point. All right, let's get to 538. He says, knowing that he cut it out but didn't put it into the show. Hold on, I got it. There we go. I'm that fast. Eric, go ahead with your 532 analysis for today.
532. Again, now you're
538. One of those numbers. Yeah.
The Galaxy are heavy favorites according to 538. They're at a 55% chance to win, with Austin at a 22% chance to win. So it's one of those things where they're looking at it where Austin is coming in limping, but the Galaxy have the home cooking. They played well. It looks like they're going to do well. That 23% chance for a tie. Again, if you're following 538, the record this year is they haven't been knocking it out of the park. They went 5 for 14 last week, so yes. 36%, still not great. So if you're anti 538, you should be worried.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Bovada odds as well, they have the Galaxy at minus 115. So that tells you the Galaxy are heavy favorites coming in whenever you see those minus odds. Austin is at plus 285. I gave some betting advice, again, not a financial advisor, where I said if it was against Seattle, where if you like to make money and you're even if you're a fan of the LA Galaxy, put your money on Seattle because it looks like it's going to trend this way. I would not put your money on Austin, even though there's going to be a bigger payout.
Right.
But I wouldn't put your money on the Galaxy either because they haven't shown you that they can win the game. So
do
not bet on this game, even though the Galaxy are heavy favorites.
Galaxy aren't covering anything as of late, so it's not something that I would go out there and do. All right, predictions guaranteed to be wrong. Please, Eric, go for it.
Guaranteed to be wrong. I'm going to go with a goal fest. I'm going to go with 3-2 LA Galaxy. Chicha is back. He gets on the board. Like I mentioned, Dayon gets his groove back. Maybe he gets a game winner. I think we see a high-scoring affair with these teams who want to play possession.
For me, I will agree. Goalfest, I think it's 3-1. I think that sort of fits the LA Galaxy. Could it be more? Could it be like 4-2? Yeah. It's going to be a little wacky, and these two teams are desperate enough for wins and points and all sorts of things.
I think that's, you're not going to see a defensive showcase.
No, and I think the LA Galaxy are going to come out. Listen, I think Galaxy are going to come out in their sort of standard set that they normally do. I think they're going to be in, the 4-2-3-1 and sort of get out there, and you see how Chicharito fits into things, and then if things go sideways, they're going to throw everybody in there, and it's going to be a 3-5-2. And it's like people say Vanney doesn't like Vanney goes to a 3-5-2 all the time. It's like the second most played, and especially with the way the Galaxy are playing recently, where they're always from behind, they play in the 3-5-2 all the time. Is it time to start in that? And Vanney's assertion is
the question.
That they're overly aggressive in the 3-5-2, and it works in the situations that they need it to work in, because they can be overly aggressive in those situations. But he's worried about the possession and everything else that comes as a result of the 3-5-2. Me personally, I would like to see him start in it, so that way I could then have like that laid out for me. Show me it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the sample size to say that it doesn't work? Because right now, it does work when they're chasing the goal, because the other team is also defending a lead as well, so they're not going to be as aggressive moving forward. So I do understand where he's coming from, but I thought one of the best points that you made, that is, if Vanney's system requires perfection every time, we need to figure out how to get some imperfect wins as well. So if that's starting at 3-5-2 and that gets you there, then maybe you need to start, thinking outside the box, because the points aren't coming. So I don't think he starts with it this game. I think Austin, if you play with, the regular formation that he's been playing, and they play as well as they did last week, I don't think you need the special tricks. But I think looking ahead at other games, when you're going to play teams where maybe you're outmatched, I think that's when maybe you switch to the 3-5-2. But I don't see it happening this weekend.
This is literally going to be like the LA Galaxy and Austin looking in a mirror at each other. It's like, we play the same way. Like Vanney,
the Spider-Man pointing meme.
Yeah. Vanney even sort of pointed it out. Vanney and Josh Wolf, they both said it in sort of their pre's, just about how much these teams like to sort of play the same way, create overloads, create spacing. So again, kind of a fun chess match to watch as a neutral, if you know going in that these are two similarly styled teams, and how that sort of battles and plays out, and how positionally that sort of goes out. The good news is for the LA Galaxy is that you have one of the best midfields in Major League Soccer with Brugman and Puig and Delgado, and people can roll their eyes at that, but I thought that was pretty evident against the LAFC. In the LAFC game, I thought the midfield was very good. If they have the same game, if they even give 95% of the same game that they played against LAFC, they win this game, I think, pretty easily. But that's tough to do.
Cut out one mistake, and get an extra goal. And don't hit the post, and you have the difference right there. You have that 3-2. So I thought Puig, absolutely looked like the guy we were waiting. Not that he hasn't been playing well, but he was extra spicy last week. So I look to him to continue that and try to get on the board.
He's eventually going to be on yellow card warning, just the way that he picks them up. So I just would like to remind everybody, he's definitely getting suspended for yellow cards this year
at some point during the season, for sure.
For sure.
But you need that. We were mentioning with Balotelli, and Costa goes too far in that other direction. But you need someone who's going to be that spark in your midfield and on your team. You need guys like that.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Anything else, Hammer? Are we good?
That's it. We're good.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here.
All right. I am Hammer EV9 on everything. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for now. That's at Hammer EV and the number 9.
All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com, where you can find all of our videos, all of our podcasts, all that fun stuff. Subscribe, share on YouTube, Facebook, all those fun places. You can find us right there. Cornerofthegalaxy.com is where you're looking. All right. LA Galaxy versus Austin FC, 7:30 p.m. coming up on April 22nd, this Saturday. If you're going to be there, we're going to see you there. If you're watching on home, hopefully you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. LA Galaxy Austin coming up this weekend. I am Josh Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.